Good afternoon. We're going to be doing a pre-flight on the DJI Air 3. This will be going through the entire pre-flight, the checklist, and everything that needs to be done before flying. We'll start by opening the case and taking out the checklist itself. The first thing you'll notice is that there's a big yellow section at the top. That's saying that all personal protective equipment must be worn at all times while flying any ISU-owned drones. This will include the safety glasses, hard hat, and the reflective safety vest. Good. Now we have this out of the way, let's move on with our drone. We're going to be doing the before leaving to fly pre-mission checklist. We're going to start with the overall condition. Make sure that's good. Make sure there's no external damage found. If there is any external damage, we need to immediately let a lab worker know, as we don't want you responsible for any damage that may have been caused from a previous flight. Now we check that we can unfold the aircraft. Please note, if you try unfolding the bottom before the top, you'll see that these top arms will not be able to be unfolded. So you have to unfold the top arms first, and then you can unfold the bottom arms. We can continue with our overall condition. We're going to see on the side that registration number. We're going to make sure the registration number is on the drone, that all applicable ISU markings are on the drone. So you see this one's the Air 3 number 1, and then we have the property tag showing that it belongs to Indiana State University. All three of those are on the drone, which is good to go. Now we can look at the bottom, check all the screws, make sure all these screws are in place, not loose, not coming out. We can check the LEDs on the arms of the aircraft. Then we can gently rotate each arm and just make sure everything does feel normal with the actual folding mechanism. Make sure there's no binding or anything that could be from stuck wires. Now we can check the internal inspection. We're going to be looking inside the aircraft, looking at the actual battery connectors, make sure none of them are bent. Looking at any electronics, left, right, top, or bottom, ensuring those are all in good condition. Additionally, if you see this QR code on my right side of the aircraft, on the inside right, that QR code will denote the actual serial number of the aircraft itself. This must be applied before flying. Looks like it's on. All condition is good. Now we can check the propellers. We're going to be unfolding each propeller to check it. And once they're unfolded, the best way to check the inspection of the propellers is to gently run your fingers along the side of the propellers. This will check for any cracks or fractures in the propellers themselves, which appears that we're good to go. Next, we can look at the little orange tips on the edge of the propeller. This is the same as on the Mini 3. If these are missing, the propeller is not safe to fly. Now, we can check the actual pins holding the propeller onto the propeller hub on the very top and see those are fully in place. Good. Now we can put the propeller back on our motor and continue with our motor inspection. First thing we're going to inspect on our motor is just by gently rotating it. You may feel some notching that's coming from the actual magnets. The magnets will be inside the rotating portion of this motor, which is called the motor bell, or you can call it the rotor. On the inside of the motor, we have the stator, which is the stationary portion. That's made up of by enamel wire, which makes up our motor windings. Everything does feel normal. We just want to make sure we rotate and feel for any debris kind of stuck in the motor, which could be like a scratchiness or grinding, maybe dust or rocks or anything like that get stuck inside. Feels normal. Now we can take off the propeller by pushing inward and rotating. Now the propeller is all the way off. We can just check the inside propeller clips. The propeller clips appear to be normal. We can also check the spring on the inside of the motor, make sure that's fully sprung, make sure there's no issues with that wearing out. We can look at inside that motor stator we were mentioning and make sure the motor stator looks normal. We're going to rotate the motor bell, check all the way around. We're going to be looking for any discoloration or deformation. Discoloration could be a sign of any overamperage or overvoltage, and the deformation could be a sign of rocks, dust, or debris getting in the motor itself. These propellers do cover a significant portion of the over top of the motor, which will prevent a lot of the dust and debris from getting inside. We can put the propeller back on just by pushing in and rotating. And one thing you're going to have to notice is by doing this, you're going to have to hold the actual motor itself, and then you're going to have to rotate the propeller separately from the motor. This is something a lot of people have trouble with as they try rotating the entire motor without holding one or the other. Both have to be held at the same time for you to get the propeller off. Good. Now we're going to be doing our SD card and storage check. That'll be in the rear of the aircraft. We're going to be gently opening up this little plastic tab. And we're making sure the SD card is installed. If you plan on recording a video, note you must provide any SD cards. ISU does not provide SD cards. And you will not need one for any training flights like check flights. However, for any projects, just make sure you have your SD card installed. We're also going to be checking that USB port, ensure it's in good condition. Good. Everything looks normal. We can put our port back on the port cover. And now we can check our flight sensors. These will be obstacle avoidance sensors. We'll check the two in the back. Those look normal. We'll check the four in the bottom. We have an LED, which is in the middle. We have the optical sensors, which are on the outside. Then we have our laser altimeter, which is kind of a little bit towards the middle. These all work together as a sensor suite for enabling this aircraft is safe and has obstacle avoidance. You may have noticed that we forgot the ones in the front. That's because they're covered by our gimbal guard. We're going to be gently removing the gimbal guard by pushing down on the bottom of the aircraft on that gimbal guard portion there, and then pulling straight out the front. Now, we should check the gimbal guard and make sure that the rubber pieces are all the way in place here. These rubber pieces are required to ensure the gimbal does not get damaged in the case. Without them, the gimbal will rock around too much and will not have a firm seat or connection on the gimbal guard. Now we can finish checking our front two sensors. Those are going to be optical sensors. They're just basically cameras. Making sure those look normal for obstacle avoidance. And now we can check our camera, make sure the gimbal guard is fully removed. Those gimbal motors we're going to lightly inspect by briefly rotating them on each axis. We'll start with roll, pitch, and yaw. This is a 3-axis gimbal with yaw dampening. That yaw dampening comes in the very top where it attaches to the aircraft. That will be a form of vibration dampening, which will help with removing vibrations from the actual motors themselves. Now we can replace the gimbal guard by pushing the top in first, kind of pushing against those sensors. And the bottom is going to clip in to the bottom of the aircraft. While you're doing this, you need to make sure that the gimbal is straight forward. There's no crooked angles in that gimbal. It's straight forward. And on both sides, you see the kind of round portions on the side of the gimbal is fully in place with those rubber grommets around the actual gimbal guard itself. Good. That's fully in place. Now we have that all the way in place. We'll just make sure the gimbal doesn't move at all. Make sure it's not rocking. It's fully in place and straight. Good. Now we can just get our pre-flight Lance approval for flying. That's all the pre-flight we need to do on the actual aircraft itself. We'll take a look at the batteries and controller next. Alright, let's take a look at our batteries. Alright, to do our pre-flight and our batteries, the battery case will be a little bit different from the batteries on the Mini 3 or the Air 3. These Air 3 batteries, again, are a little bit bigger, and they also have special latches to remove them. Let's look at the actual buttons on the side first. We see we have one button. We'll check our battery status on the top. And then we have that USB port, which can be used for input or output, so you can actually charge your phone with it, or you can charge the batteries from the case. Good. Now let's remove one of the batteries by using this latch on the bottom. Push that latch, pull the batteries out. Obviously, all of our batteries are going to be fully charged before we fly. Right now, we're just doing a pre-flight, so if they're not charged for the pre-flight, that's perfectly fine. We're going to be matching up the back with the contacts to make sure the contacts look normal on the battery itself. We're going to slide the battery all the way in, make sure we hear that click. That click all the way in, we actually see the battery lights turn on. That indicates that it's fully connected. Now the battery's all the way in. We can push on the two sides in the back and remove the battery. Now we have it fully removed. We can just once again briefly check to make sure there's no issues with the battery, looking at the connector on the drone and the battery. We can make sure there's no puffiness in the battery itself. That could be a sign of any damage to the battery. We're going to be making sure those connectors in the battery are in good condition. We can gently push them in, make sure those are good connection. And the ones on the side that actually connect to the drone itself, push in those connections, make sure there's no issues there. Our battery appears to be in good condition. We'll be doing that pre-flight for all the batteries. For the purpose of the video, we will not do every single battery. Now we can fold back our drone and put it back in the case. To do that, we're going to be doing, remember, our bottom arms first. Making sure that the bottom propellers are kind of roughly positioned to the inside of the drone. Then we can fold our top arms in. Propellers have a nice little sitting place on the top of the drone as well. Please note we can keep our propellers on while the drone is in the case. Good. Now we'll put our batteries back in the case. One key thing to keep in mind is a round portion can go in the front closest to the inside near the drone. The squarish portion will be the outside of the case. Now we can look at the controller pre-flight. For our controller pre-flight, we're going to have a couple things we're going to watch for, and it will be a little bit different from the Mini 3. The big thing will be these antennas in the top here. These antennas will give increased range compared to the Mini 3. We're going to be folding them outward with a 45-degree angle upward. This will be something you don't have to do on the smaller drones. That will be a little bit different on this drone. Ensuring they're entirely upward like this, at this 45-degree angle all times during flight, will ensure best range and accuracy. Good. Now let's take a look at all the buttons in the controller. On the right side, you'll have the power button. In the middle, you have the switch mode button. It's currently in normal mode. If you were to switch it to the left, you go to cinema mode, and all the way to the right is sport mode. Sport mode will be one that you have to do the DJI additional flight modes training session if you want to use those. That'll be for the intelligent flight modes as well as those sport modes on any of the DJI drones. We'll put it back in normal mode. Good. The cinema mode will be primarily a tripod-based mode where the aircraft will try to stay as still as possible in the sky. It will be a little bit slower with the sticks, and the gimbal will move slower. On the left of that mode switch will be the pause intelligent flight mode button and the return to home button. If you are in intelligent flight mode, you can click once to pause it, or you can press and hold to return to home. Our sticks will operate exactly the same as they do on the other drones. On the back of the controller, we have a couple buttons. On the controller's right side will be our photo button. That's on the controller's right side. On the controller's left side will be our record video button. On the controller's left side will be our gimbal pitch dial, which will pitch our gimbal up and down. And then on the controller's right side will be the gimbal zoom dial. This aircraft does have an optical zoom, meaning the actual physical lens and the actual glass inside the lens will move a little bit to give an actual zoom. Some of the smaller drones don't offer an optical zoom, they'll only have a digital zoom. So this does have a little better quality zoom than some of the smaller drones. Good. Now we can push all the buttons, make sure everything feels normal. On the back, we also have two programmable function buttons in which we can check those. You can program those inside the DJI Fly app, which is pre-installed in this controller. Next, we're going to turn on the controller by pushing and holding the power button. While power is on, there's going to be a couple of things we're going to be checking. We're going to be checking to ensure that the controller is fully logged into an account. We're going to be checking to make sure the controller has good battery. And we're going to be checking to make sure there's no updates. That could be update to the controller or something like a precise fly database update. So we're powering it on. We're going to click the profile button in the bottom middle. And we see it's logged into our UMS account. You can log into your own accounts if you wanted to. However, please make sure you log out before you're finished, because if you don't, someone else may use your account. If it's not logged into your account and you don't want to use your own account, you may use our account, our Indiana State University account. However, please see a lab worker to get the details. It looks like there's no precise fly database updates, and everything looks normal. We can now power off the controller by pressing and holding on that power button. We'll see it fully shutting down there. We can fold in the antennas using the right side first and then the left side. Now everything's fully in place. We can put the controller back in the box. We'll make sure we keep the sticks on. The sticks can actually stay on in the case. You see there's actually cutouts for it in the case. That's the entire pre-flight for the indoor portion. Again, we're going to do a separate pre-flight when you're outside. But that's the entire pre-flight for the indoor portion of the DJI Air 3. We're going to be starting with the outdoor portion of the DJI Air 3 pre-flight. You may notice that there's two sections of pre-flight. There's the pre-mission before leaving to fly, and then there's the UAS section. So the pre-mission before leaving to fly will be a lot more in-depth, as you'll be doing that in the lab before you actually leave. It's going to be a lot more looking at what's going on, making sure everything's in good condition. When you're actually coming outside, may have been a day or two since you actually took the drone, so you're still going to be doing a pre-flight, but won't be as in-depth as when you were in the lab. We're going to be starting here with the UAS section. We're going to make sure the overall condition is good. We're going to do that by unfolding the arms, front, then back. Good. Now we'll just look around, make sure all the screws are in place, make sure there's no obvious damage or dents. Make sure all the applicable ISU markings are still on the drone. Good. Now we can look at the propellers. We're going to be making sure they're fully attached. We can briefly pull up on them a little bit. You should make sure they're fully attached. We can run our fingers along the edges of the propellers to ensure we don't feel any cracks or damage. Everything looks good. We'll be doing that for all the propellers, but for the purpose of this video, we won't go through every single one. We'll then do the same thing for the motors. We're doing a brief inspection, make sure they feel normal, make sure they spin normally, make sure you don't feel any grinding for any rocks, dirt, or debris that's stuck in the motors. Remember, you will feel a little bit of notching. That's from the permanent magnets and electromagnets interfacing with each other, but that's normal. Good. All the motors spin normally. Again, for the purpose of this video, we're only doing one, but you'll have to do all of them for your pre-flight. Next, I'm going to be checking the SD card or storage. That'll be in the rear of the aircraft. We got the USB port in the bottom, the SD card port in the top. Our SD card is fully inserted. We got plenty of storage. Good. Let's start with the gimbal guard. We can remove the gimbal guard by pushing down the bottom and pulling straight out. And then we're going to be inspecting our flight sensors. So we're going to be looking at those two optical sensors in the front, those optical avoidance. Those two look normal. We can look at the two in the back. And then the couple on the bottom. We have the same optical sensor on the outside. We have our laser altimeter, slightly more on the inside. In the middle, we have our LED to make it easier to see when the drone is landing in maybe low lighting conditions. Good. All flight sensors are normal. We're checking to make sure there's no scratches, making sure there's no dirt or debris on there. Now we're going to check our main camera or sensor. We're going to make sure it's free of debris, there's no damage. We're just going to gently rotate, pitch, roll, and yaw. Again, this is a 3-axis mechanically stabilized gimbal with yaw dampening. Just make sure that it does all feel normal. Good. Now let's take a look at our batteries. We're going to make sure those are inserted at fully charged. We can click the buttons on the top, that'll tell you your percentage. And there's a button on the bottom, a little lever that will actually unlatch it from the case. Pull that out. We'll insert it into the bottom of the drone. We're making sure the contacts line up. So contact on the bottom, all the way in until you hear the click. If we tip it to the back, we'll make sure it's not falling out. Everything looks good. Great. Now the drone is pre-flighted. Let's move it out and put it on the landing pad. We'll put it facing away from us. This will be at the front of the camera, facing straight away from us. The reason we do this is because it makes it easier for if there are any gusts of wind or anything like that. That does happen when we're doing our takeoff, so it's easier to correct for. Good. Now let's do the controller. We're going to make sure the overall condition is good. Looking around, everything does look normal. We can push the buttons, move the gimbals, dials in the back. Awesome. Let's unfold the antennas. Make sure our gimbal sticks are fully inserted. Those antennas should be at about 30 or 45 degree angle. There's an indentation in the actual movement of them so that they should hold their position right there. Good. We got antennas deployed. Batteries fully charged on the controller. We can push that button. Make sure we have 4 green bars. Full charge. Awesome. Now we're done with our controller pre-flight. Let's move on to the startup. Our power on procedure will be remote on first and then aircraft on. So push, and hold on the controller. There's a power up sound. Now let's push and hold on our drone and power on our drone. The reason we always do our controller first, then the drone, is because the drone should always be receiving a signal from the controller. If you don't do it like that, you may actually have issues where the drone can power on and may actually start up when you don't want it to. Good. Now let's make sure the ground control software is open with a mission set. We got it open on our controller. Everything looks good there. We're to return to home. Make sure the altitude is verified. They'll be in the settings themselves. Position confirmed will be where it actually took off. Good. Now let's do a crew briefing. Carrick over there will be the remote pilot in command, and me behind the microphone, I will be the visual observer. We're going to be switching our flight mode to normal. That's going to be the middle switch, making sure it's in the middle position. We're going to make sure our link to Air 3 is good. Link to Air 3 is good. That's going to be the top right of the controller. Make sure the satellites are above 10. Make sure the launch area is clear of people, object, or debris. Everything looks clear. Crew and personnel notify of intended launch. Carrick's giving me the all good that we're good for launch. We're going to do one last check on the controller, make sure all systems are ready for flight. We're going to do our launch area. We're going to verbally announce clear prop.
Clear prop.
We're going to do motors start, so we can either do both sticks inward to the center like Carrick did there. And now we see the actual motors start on the ground, or we can do an automatic takeoff. We're just going to be doing a manual takeoff right now. The motors are started, and we're going to be doing our look and listen test. We're making sure the sight and sound is good. What we're going to be doing is looking at the drone, making sure there's no vibrations or oscillations that could be coming from bent propellers, issues with the actual motors, maybe dust or debris in them. Then we're going to listen, make sure everything sounds normal. The more you fly these drones, the more you'll get familiar with how they're supposed to sound. Everything does sound normal here. Everything look good to you, Carrick? Awesome. Everything looks good. Now, we're going to do our taking off. So we're going to verbally announce taking off and push the left stick all the way up. And we'll get it, a couple meters here in the air. It's about 3 or so meters. Good. Now we have it in the air. We're going to fly a little bit further away from us, a little bit higher up. That's a good altitude there. Then we're going to be doing our stick direction check. We're going to make sure all axes are normal. We're going to push forward, backward, left, and right on each stick. Good. Stick direction check is normal. Next, we're going to do an obstacle check. We'll make sure we're observing and aware of where all the obstacles are in the area. Here at Rec East, we got those light posts out in front of us. We got some fence cages for the actual baseball diamond here in the back. Got some trees off in the distance, the field itself. We're going to be staying over the grass the entire time. Good. Now we're going to do altitude above all obstacles. For right now, we'll keep it at the current altitude. We can just bring it down a little bit here to make it a little bit easier to see. Perfect. We're going to make sure our battery is about 30% for the aircraft controller and tablet the entire flight. And you can do this checklist anytime in flight as well. It's a really great checklist to do. Then we can do our satellites. Make sure our satellites are above 10. Satellites are above 10. Great. That is our in-flight checklist. Now let's do our recovery checklist. We're going to do our return to home. So we're going to verbally announce our intention to our flight crew. So we're going to be returned to home. Make sure we have the area clear. Landing. Now let's do our landing announcement. Make sure the area is fully clear. We'll bring over to our landing area. Make sure the physical landing area is clear of obstructions. The terrain is clear. We'll do a slow descent to land. And we can hold that left stick all the way down until the motors are shut off on the ground. And then we'll make sure the motors are fully stopped. Now, our recovery will be to make sure the aircraft is off first and then the drone is off. So we'll turn off the aircraft and then we can turn off the controller. So our aircraft off always first and then the controller. Wait for those lights to stop. Wait till we hear it stop. Good. Now we can turn off the controller. We're going to remove the aircraft battery. Pull in those two tabs on the side, push them in, pull it out. We're going to install our gimbal guard, put our battery back on the case. Remember that gimbal guard, you're just going to push straight on, make sure the camera is straight in place. That bottom section will latch into the bottom of the drone. Good. Now we're going to visually inspect our propellers for damage. We can visually inspect the aircraft for damage or signs of impact with bugs. We should clean it off after our flight when we get back to the lab if there are any bugs on it. We're going to fold our arms. So remember, our bottom arms first, and then our top arms. I usually fold my propellers while doing this at the same time. Good. Now we can put it back in the case and we can start with our controller. We'll fold up our controller antennas. Make sure we keep the sticks in so we don't lose them because again we do have the spot for them in the case. Good. Make sure all the data is logged on the app, which we did before we powered it off. Got our checklist in there. We're good to go. That has been the outdoor portion and the launch portion of the DJI Air 3.